Hello guys, welcome back to this channel. Today we are going to be talking about mock test papers. When should you be giving mock test papers? How many mock papers do you need to pass the exam? What are the common mistakes that students do in mock test paper writing? And how should you be correcting the mock test papers? And also, is it necessary to write the mocks if you want to pass the exam? Or is it just a myth? Well, let's talk about all of that. Let's start. I am Yogita Harjani. I'm a CA and a CS. I have all India ranks in CS exams, and on this channel I try to help students to pass the exam. Let's start off. Okay, so number one, when should you be writing the mocks? Well, see, everybody knows that we should have some sort of writing practice. We should give the mocks, okay? But I have seen that most of the students, they just write mocks for the sake of writing mocks. Okay, when you're writing mocks, it is basically testing your preparation. It is basically to check where you lack, what are your mistakes. Okay, writing mocks should not be just a tick mark in your checklist. Okay, so most of the students do that. They don't complete their preparation, they don't revise nicely, they don't complete their syllabus, they just write the mocks for the sake of writing the mocks, which is a problem. You should be writing the mocks after you have at least bare minimum finished the entire syllabus at least once. You should have studied every single chapter of every single subject. You should have practiced the practice questions, the test your knowledge questions of every single chapter yourself. Okay, once you've thoroughly prepared everything, then sit for the mocks. Then you will be able to actually assess how your preparation is. Whether you know these concepts or not, whether you're able to handle the test paper or not, whether your speed is enough or not, etc. Okay, otherwise if your preparation itself is like 50%, 40%, 30%, then if you're writing the mocks, anyways you won't be getting good marks. You will only know 50% of the answers because you haven't studied the rest of the 50% paper. So what is even the sense of writing the mocks, right? Write the mocks when you're prepared. Otherwise, if let's say your preparation is not complete, then don't worry. Don't waste time writing mocks. Rather, prioritize revision. First, complete your syllabus. Complete the practice questions that your teachers have given you or that are available in study material. Solve everything by your own hand. Consider that itself as practice, writing practice. When you solve every question yourself, you are anyways developing that thinking ability. Right? Do that first. Prioritize that. When you complete the syllabus, at least 80-90% syllabus nicely, then in the exam, based on that, you will be able to write something. Versus, if you only complete 40%, 50% of the syllabus, even if you have written the mock after that, it's of no use. Because honestly, in the exam, still you will know only 40-50% syllabus. Rest of the 50% paper, you will not know. It's very hard to pass only based on 40% or 50% of the syllabus completion, right? So prioritize revision always. Once your revision, that means at least your first reading and some sort of practice is completed, after that, do mock test papers, not before that. Okay. Question number 2, how many mock test papers are enough to pass the exam? So you can find mock test papers on many different websites, okay? They'll give you a mock test paper. It can be 50% syllabus, it can be chapter wise, it can be a full length mock test paper. You can sit and give it and they will check it for you and they will give the result also. Okay, now I have personally noticed that when you do these test papers from websites which are very generalized websites, then first of all the paper pattern of these papers is not up to the par. It is not as difficult as the paper that comes in our actual exams. Okay, so these are usually easier papers. That is one. Second, I have noticed that the checking is not as good. The checking is usually done by assistants. They are not even CAs who are checking the paper. And assistants usually just check it at a very liberal, they check it very liberally. They don't check it very strictly. In the exam, our paper is checked very strictly. We are given very less marks. Now, this is a general opinion. I am not particularly talking about any test series. If specifically teachers are conducting any test series and they are themselves checking it, or you know that it is a good test series and proper strict paper is going to be set and strict checking is going to be done, then go for it. Okay. Otherwise, what I personally think is you can directly just take up the past exam papers that are available on the institute's portal. You know that past exam papers are lined up on the institute's website with the suggested answers. Directly take them up, please. Directly just take them up. They are actual exam papers, and you also have the expected solutions from the institute's site. So take those papers and solve it yourself. If you're a CS student, then revision test papers are also available. Then mock test papers are also available. Solve them because it's institute's publication. Sometimes the questions directly are picked up from those questions, from those papers, and they are asked in the exam. So if you're lucky enough, 10 to 20% marks you will just bag like this because you've solved the suggested answers, the RTPs, the mock papers that are published by the institute. Now, how many number of papers you should be solving? It really depends on the available time with you. So let's say you are in the last month of your preparation. You also have to revise the subjects, and at the same time you want to write the mocks also. Now in this case, prioritize revision first. Okay, so maybe 2-3 days per subject, you properly revise the entire subject, you practice the selected questions that you have marked. After that, let's say you have only half a day left. If you have very little time, then at least bare minimum one suggested answer, one RTP, one mock paper you should solve. But if you have more time, then solve more papers. The more question papers you solve, it is better for you. You have better practice, your exam phobia is going to completely go away, etc. Right? But please, it's completely dependent on the available time. Don't compare that that other friend of yours has completed like 4 papers or 5 papers and this other friend of yours has completed 2 papers, etc. Please don't compare. It really doesn't matter. It completely depends on how you have done your first reading and second reading. If your first reading and second reading is conceptually very strong, you have understood all the concepts nicely, you have practiced every question with your own hand without looking at the answer, then already you have done writing practice. Okay, your concepts are way stronger compared to that other friend of yours who has not done the first reading nicely, who has only completed 50-60% of the syllabus, and he is sitting to write mocks. Even if he has written 3-4 mocks, it doesn't matter, because ultimately what matters is your writing practice, and writing practice doesn't always and only come from mock writing. It comes from your general practice of the questions also. So when you're first time reading, second time reading, revising, recalling, if you're practicing your questions in rough during that practice, okay, or thinking about the answer, that is also counted. Now, one common mistake that I have noticed a lot of students doing when they are solving mock test paper is that they really are very focused and attached to the marks that they have received. Okay, so out of 100, if you've gotten 60 marks, 70 marks, if you've passed, then the students feel very happy and they move on. They move on to the next subject, the next mock, the next revision of the subject. Okay, they don't assess where they have lost the marks. See, when you're writing mocks, be it on some website or by yourself, if you're solving suggested answers or past exam papers, the number of marks you get is irrelevant. Nobody is going to see those mock paper marks. Ultimately, what matters is where your mistakes lie. You have to check where you are lacking. Okay, you have to understand those areas and you have to work on those areas. Whenever you have completed a mock test paper, sit down, actually analyze that paper. Which questions you were able to do nicely, how much marks did you get in every question, which questions you were not able to do, what was your speed like, were you able to complete the paper entirely, or was the time, there was shortage of time. Was your speed enough to write the answers? If not, we'll have to work on the speed. There may be a couple of chapters that you're not that strong in. You have to study the paper, check which chapters you're weak in, and then those particular chapters, please go back and revise those chapters. See why you're weak in them. Practice a few more questions of that particular chapter. Okay, then in theory subjects, please check your presentation. Have you written it nicely? Are you getting marks for your presentation? Are you losing marks because of your presentation? Now in theory papers, especially law papers, law, taxation, audit papers, please note whether you are writing every provision. I have noticed many students, they don't get full marks in law because their conclusion is maybe right. You know, if it is a case study which is given, their conclusion may be right, that the company has done right or wrong, but their provisions are not accurate. Sometimes out of 4 provisions, they only write 2 provisions and then they lose marks. And then they're like, ma'am, I wrote everything, but I did not get the marks. So you have to check, are you able to reproduce every single provision or not? Okay, now sometimes students, they read the question incorrectly. They read the question, they think the answer is going to be A, but the answer is B. Why? Because they have not understood the actual requirement of the question. So please check if you're able to read the question correctly. Okay, analyze the paper and check if you're making any silly mistakes, any calculation errors. Okay, in the chapters where you're losing marks, see why you're losing marks. Is it because there is some conceptual adjustment which you do not know, which you're weak at, or is it because you got a little stressed because of the panic, because of your thought process? Why you lost marks, if you lost any marks? That's when you're saving marks in the actual exam. If you know your mistakes beforehand, you can correct your mistakes and you won't do them in the exam, and then you will save marks. You will get more marks in the exam. Okay, so that's how you should be solving the mock test papers, not just writing the mock and then moving on to the next mock and then moving on to the next mock. It's not the number of mock papers that matter. Most people, they flaunt that I have solved 3 mock papers, I've done mocks from this website, that website. No, it doesn't matter. Ultimately what matters is, even if you've done one mock paper, even if you've done one past exam paper, how well you've done it, how nicely you're checking it, how much juice you're deriving out of it, how much mistakes you're correcting from that, okay, how much you're learning from that one paper. Okay, I want you to also sit down and analyze the paper pattern. Okay, so 6 questions come. The first one is compulsory. Then there is an option in the 5th question, A or B. So this chapter always comes in question number 4. So you will have to analyze the paper pattern. When you analyze the paper pattern, you will get insights on how to attempt it. First, maybe I'm going to do question number 4 because it's easy. In costing, I'm not able to finish the paper, but if I do theory, then I will be able to save some time. Ultimately, if you do 100% paper, you're going to bag the maximum marks. So if your speed is less, maybe you can work on theory in practical subjects and you can improve your theory. And that way you will be able to finish 100% paper and you can get more marks. So you'll have to think analytically where you can improve your marks. Lastly, final question, is writing mocks compulsory to pass the exam? The answer is absolutely no. Writing mocks for 3 hours can sometimes be very time consuming. And sometimes our preparation is so tight, the time is so less that sometimes we may not get time to entirely write 3-hour papers. Okay, so in such circumstances, the hack is that you still have to solve exam papers, but you can solve them orally. Okay, instead of writing for 3 hours every single word nicely with good presentation, rather just take 2 papers in 3 hours, okay, and quickly look at the questions, quickly think about the answer or solve the answer in rough and then compare the answer with the solutions given by the institute. Here I'm asking you that you should be taking up exam papers which are already available on institute's portal and the revision test papers and the mock papers which are available on the institute's portal. Based on that also, you can analyze your mistake. You can see whether your speed is good enough, whether you know all the chapters, whether you're making any errors, how much is your accuracy, presentation, all of that. The crux of the matter is that in the exam, your performance is not going to solely depend on the number of mock test papers that you have given. It is going to depend on what is your preparation level, how conceptually strong you are, and how much writing practice you have. Now, writing practice you can do even when you're doing your first reading and second reading. It's not just dependent on how many mock papers you're writing in 3 hours. Alright, I've seen many students who pass without giving any mock test papers because their conceptual understanding was great. In their first reading, they have done every question themselves without looking at the answer. Okay, they have made note of whatever mistakes they have done. They have learned from their mistakes in their first reading and second reading itself. They have revised a lot. They have learned the concepts. So don't worry if you don't have so much time to write 3-hour mocks. It's okay, no problem. Do the exam papers orally or just focus on your revision and your practice in your self-study sessions. That will also do miracles if you do it nicely. Okay, I hope this video is helpful and fruitful. If you have any questions, please write them down in the comment section below. Love to get back to you on them. Okay, bye bye.